Welcome to From the Wizard's Lair, an experiment in remote records. Hey, I'm Eric, and as the title implies, a concept that has been boiling in the back of my head for a while has been the concept of remote records. And what do I mean by that? Well, I mean that we have multiple environments now. We have production environments, we have sandboxes, we have multiple production environments, and the concept of grabbing something from another environment or writing something to another environment is count how many times you've heard either yourself or consultants that move stuff between environments using rapid start or configuration packages and all that, or with my BCCL tool or stuff like that. But what if we could just connect them directly at an AL level? So I whipped up a prototype, but let me show you. So here is my toolbox. If you don't know my toolbox, that's now an app source that enables you to write AL code directly and hit run, and it will run and all is good. So let's write a quick piece of AL here. We create a variable called C begin. We'll do a if c.find set, then repeat message, and message works slightly different in the toolbox than it does in real AL, because it will output on the right side, unless you untick this one, then it will just do as message normally do. We'll do C, and let's grab the name field there until c dot next equals 0, and we'll need to put an end here. So that's a piece of AL, right? We hit run and it runs. And what we can do, change company. Nothing new in that, so we can read and write, go to another company. So now I added this guy, change environment, and right now I'm working in a Docker, but I have, so in the setup I added a place where you can identify another. Well, you can identify credentials to a tenant, basically. And what I can do now, so I have a tenant called environment, a sandbox called ACS. So I do C change environment, I hit run. And the first thing you'll see right now that this is slow. And slow is, well, we spent 4.5 seconds on getting 5 records. Maybe if I run again, it's faster because we have cached the credentials to OAuth. But for some reason, web services are very slow in my thing here right now. But as you can see, that now the names change because I put BC21 on all the items in the other table. So we can also do stuff like C set filter on the number column. Let's do a filter, say 10,000, 30,000, 50,000, 45,000. There's no such customer like that. We set a filter, we run again, and now we only get 3 records from over there. So and we could do something like C2 record customer, and then starts doing that C2 copy from C and then C2 insert, stuff like that, if we wanted to here. So we need to copy data from one environment to another one. But let me show you what I'm doing, because I thought that could be interesting. So I have don't be scared by the line numbers. I have a pretty big code unit here called the interpreter, where everything is happening. And let me find this. So somewhere here's a function called record function. So this one is the one that's get called whenever you do have a record dot something. You want to do something on a record. Then eventually everything comes down to this function, and we grab the variable we're looking at, and if that has been tagged as a remote variable, then it gets tagged as a remote variable if we do the change environment. Then, and right now I'm only supporting find set, find it next for this, trying to get everything to work here. So we call into remote record function instead of going through the all the normal functions. So remote record functions. Let me actually hit F12. And all this prototyping. So bear in mind like this crazy stuff and so on. So what's happening now is that it will take the record ref that we're using, that is our record in the database we are in, or in the environment that we're in, and creates a JSON with the record and table information, the current expression, which is, so actually I'm not sure I'm using that anymore, but the expression that the context of what we're using it in, and the operation mean dot find dot next dot whatever, and we're passing over all the filters. So we have that, so builds up that, then, and this is why I actually don't need the expression, so I can let me get rid of that. Then I evaluate the parameters. So we ask the interpreter to figure out what are the parameter to next, because that might be, you know, a piece of code that returns a value that is the parameter that goes into next. Save that as pom1, and make sure that I have a remote environment, a remote company. And when we have that whole JSON wrapped up, we call into a send to remote toolbox function that has a AJ Kaufman inspired code unit to talk with service to service authentication. So eventually that calls into post into an exposed code unit, gets the reply back, and gets that back, and then we look at, if we call find set, well, clearly we got a record back, we got a result back, which is the true or false out of the find set, but only if you see here that if we're not inside an expression. So if find set, in those cases we care about it. If we don't care about it, then we, at this right now, it just sets to true, and then if it should actually set it nice. Why? But this is sloppy. Let's fix it. Let's fix it, right? So, because otherwise it won't fail later. So we don't actually care about this, so we just do this. Live coding. How about that? And I think we need to do the same on find. So anyway, so it calls that. We get the record back. Maybe we should not save the record if it fails. So there's always that. And continue on our way. The same thing with next. As long as we get a value, we get the record out of next. So in case this one should actually, well, if we gonna get fix find set, so then we're not getting an integer, we're getting a boolean, and if we're getting true, then we want to grab the record, right? Let's see, in reality that's probably the exact same thing we want to do on find, but there's slightly different parameters on those. So, and we have here where up here we had a ref to JSON, so we packed the record into JSON to send it off, and down here we have a JSON to ref, so we take the JSON and reassemble it into a record. So we have here actually on where we're working, we have the record as a record ref. We just never actually do any database operations on it. We just have it in memory, and then we do the database operations on the other side of the fence. And the other side of the fence, see, I think we got here. I just right now have that as a separate separate extension just to make deployment easier while I was doing stuff here, and also be able to debug two places at the same time if I needed to. So we have a code unit exposed as OData service enabled. There's a function called remote record that takes a payload. The payload gets read in as a so we get the JSON, so we extract the information of the JSON. In case of find, we get the ref here. So we build a parallel ref on the other side of the fence. We execute a find first on that one and send the result back. If we are executing a next, we have to do a find equal. So we have to get the record we're on. So when we are doing a next, sorry if this gets confusing. So we're always sending the record over, even when we want to do next, because we need to tell the remote thing that this is the record you're on, and then do a next. So in this case, we're gonna do a next. Need better error handling, I know that, and then I need to figure out what this next step is, and potentially you can call next without a parameter, and that's the same as saying next add with a 1 as a parameter. So I need to make sure that we handle that. So eventually we call ref.next, save the return value of that, save the current record as it is now, and just for auditing and figure out what takes time, we also put how much time did we spend inside the web service here, and we send all that back to the caller. So, and I get sun in my head here for some reason. That's why I always shoot this video at night, so I won't get sun in my head. So we have a regref that has never touched the database. I serialize that into JSON, send it to over to web service to somewhere else, deserialize it from JSON to a ref, do whatever I need to do on it, serialize the result, send that back as reply in the web service, deserialize that on the beginning and put it back into the original ref. Now I have a remote record working in the toolbox. Apart from right now, and let's actually, you can see what, and maybe not that one, this one. Give me maybe tell me how fast web services are when you just, so now I'm calling from my Docker into a cloud web service, and I know that there's you know, there's an overhead compared to service from within the world of Microsoft, but I was actually surprised how long some of these things took. Let's deploy the toolbox here. And we're just gonna grab this program from this one and put that in here, and I'll run it. Hang on, did I write something funky? Oh, C2 record. Wow, that was beautiful, beautiful. Hit run. And now we're looking at, so the first web service call took 1 second and 45. 15 milliseconds was spent in the web service on the remote. The next call took a second. So now we're caching OAuth and spent 100 milliseconds remote, and just about a second, 31 remote, 3/4 of a second, 16 remote. And if we run it again, it's probably a tad faster, but 600, 600, 700, so, and 500 for the last one, because we called find and then we call next until there's no more next. So I need to figure out if I'm doing something funky and my web services are just slow, or when I deploy this all in the cloud that it's much faster, because half a second per record, that is kind of, it might still be faster than a config package, but not by much. So you might have been yelling at the screen at this point for a long time and saying, but hang on, Eric, what about transactions? So far, when I'm only reading at the remote, I really don't care about transactions, right? The problem is that if I implemented modify or insert, delete, then because of, you know, the web service side of things is 1 session per record, then now we're looking at committing after each transaction, which might be okay, but it's certainly a departure from how AL normally works, and maybe, and again, I'm thinking out loud, and I will love your opinions, comments below. Hit me on Twitter, send me an email, send me a box of chocolate, whatever. If you have an opinion on this topic and good ideas, I would like to hear them. But maybe read-only remote records is kind of okay. So you are always kind of designating that you're running the toolbox in the writing end of things. So if you're going to, you know, if you're going to get records into production, you're running a toolbox in production to pull it in. Maybe it's okay that it's commit per record. Maybe it's not. I'm thinking out loud here. I can think of a bunch of situations where this would have come really handy, where I had stuff sitting in a sandbox and I just need to grab it and use it somewhere else, and you know, creating a config package and exporting and importing, and then you figure out how I need to grab some more records, I need to grab them again, and then you have to do a whole process again. Would have been way faster with this, even at half a second per record, I think. But I'm gonna do some more testing with a cloud to cloud and see what the speed is there. Anyway, now I'm getting so much sun in my head that you know the Mac is getting a sunburn, which is right there. That was kind of weird. Sun. This is winter in British Columbia. Anyway, let me know what you think. Is this useful, or is this just one of my crazy dreams that I spent way too many hours thinking of, and just to send it off to Neverland? So deep down I think it's cool, but I am aware that for this to be cool, it might be for a very, very small segment of the AL population. Anyway, if you want to see something other that's pretty cool, check out this video. I'll see you there. Take care. Bye.